It's often said that Unforgiven stripped the myth out of the Western, that somebody finally told the truth. But y'all see, there's a problem with this argument. The myth was never about truth. It was about values. That's not a technical distinction. It's a human one.
Architectural outcast.
Unforgiven presents itself as a correction, not just to Western history, but to Western storytelling. It treats the earlier Westerns as illusions, stories that were too clean, too simple, too comforting. The film's position is clear. These earlier stories didn't tell the truth. What Unforgiven offers is honesty, stripped down, unflinching honesty. That's how the film sees itself. And this matters because everything that follows depends upon that claim. The older Western myth was never about factual truth. It wasn't history. It wasn't realism. It was about values, responsibility, community, moral clarity. It offered a way to see the world, to know what mattered when things became uncertain. The myth came first because people needed orientation before accuracy, a framework before a record. And once you understand that, you can see what Unforgiven thinks it's correcting and what it misunderstands along the way. The older myth didn't go unchallenged. There are always those who push back. For example, one of the first major challenges came from High Noon. The film directly questioned the values in the traditional Western. It treats them as insufficient, out of touch with reality. But it didn't remove myth from the story, it replaced it. A new moral frame, a new set of values. It presented the replacement as gravity, as honesty, as maturity. The structure stayed the same, only the values changed. You push, somebody's going to push back. That challenge didn't go unanswered. Rio Bravo was the response. It didn't deny criticism. It didn't claim that the earlier Westerns were perfect. What it did do was defend the purpose of the myth in the first place. It argued that these stories carried values worth keeping, that community mattered, that responsibility mattered, not because they were comforting, but because they worked. By this point, the Western was more than just a genre. It was a conversation. Unforgiven arrives on the scene after this argument has had time to settle. The Western has been arguing with itself about myth, about values, about meaning. Unforgiven doesn't want to choose between these positions. It wants to move past them. It presents itself as something final, post-myth, free of illusion, not a defense, not a revision, an exposure. And it's that ambition that gives the film its authority. There's a problem with this claim, though. Myth doesn't disappear when you expose it. It doesn't dissolve under scrutiny. It doesn't vanish when you call it a lie. It gets replaced. And that's where things usually go wrong. Unforgiven doesn't step outside of mythic thinking. It turns it inside out. The structure stays. The authority stays. Only the values change. That's the mistake. And it's an easy one to make because Unforgiven believes it has escaped the problem altogether. William Money isn't demystified. He's not reduced to an ordinary man. He isn't brought down to earth. He's transformed from a hero to a warning, from an ideal to a threat. The film removes the older figure of aspiration and installs a new figure of authority in his place. Money doesn't show us what to be. He shows us what happens. And that's a very different kind of lesson. This shift matters because the story is still teaching values, just darker ones. This isn't the absence of myth. It's the creation of a new myth. The ending isn't realism. It doesn't leave things open. It doesn't ask questions. It closes the stories, and what happens feels less like an outcome and more like a settlement. A line is drawn, authority is asserted, and the world is put back into order. The old myth is rejected, but the power of myth remains. The story still tells us what matters, who carries weight, who decides. That's where the replacement is complete. Unforgiven matters. It sharpened the conversation. It forced the genre to look at itself. It refused easy sentiment. It challenged inherited assumptions without pretending that the past was simple or clean. Those contributions are real. But the film doesn't step outside of myth. It doesn't end the argument. It redirects it. The values change, but the authority remains. Understanding that is key to understanding what the film actually does. Myth was never about truth. It was always about values and what a story is asking us to carry forward. Unforgiven doesn't remove myth from the Western. It replaces one set of values with another and calls that exchange honesty. That isn't failure, but it's not what the movie claims to be doing. And once you see that, you can accurately place Unforgiven within the greater conversation it's a part of. At any rate, I hope I've given you all something to think about, and until next time, y'all be safe. If y'all are still here, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. While you're at it, why don't you like this video, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell. You can hear me yammer on about something else next time. And feel free to share this video far and wide.
Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment.